Hey guys, welcome back to another weekly playlist. Again, I got OPT with us today. Say hi to him. Hi, OPT.
Hey everyone. Hey,
Thank you for coming on, OPT. I'm glad you accepted our invite. So let's get started with SPY. So we dumped like we thought we would, right? And then on Thursday we had our reversal in a Friday. However, right, like 1.5 days of bullish action doesn't really make a trend. The sell the rip is honestly very much in progress. So this is actually one of the charts I got on here where you can see that this could easily be a wave four with a wave five coming down to 375, 373. So OPD, what are your thoughts on this chart and this flow and with regards to FOMC, not FOMC, I mean OPEX coming up?
yeah, no. So I mean, I agree with your chart. And I'm being a little bit, biased there, on the bearish side, just kind of continuing with the trend, and after having the bounce we had, and then looking at some of the other indicators like on the Bollinger Bands, on the weekly and the daily, they're hanging out right at the bottom one, so they're been due for a potential bounce. But the flow has been pretty interesting. I mean, the flow that we're showing on the screen, just it's a bit all over the place on the bid and ask side below open interest. But what I thought was interesting was just the continued hitting of this expiration and this strike. So we were talking earlier, and I'm going to check open interest Monday morning when it comes and kind of get a picture. But this would be a strike. I would be curious to see what happens. Does it reject there? Were these bears that were closing, or were these new positions just being open, but maybe just not in the volume we've seen lately because volume has been trending down. But overall, no, I'm in agreement with the trend that you have on your charts right there.
Yeah, alternatively too, right? Even if we are bearish, I do have an alternate count, but even in that, you can see that we've actually, completed 5 waves to the upside. And we know when 5 waves are, kind of done, the market generally, pulls back. So I think whether we're bullish or bearish, right? I think we do have a gap to fill at like 393. So I feel like whether we're bullish or bearish, this gap, right? I'd say, what is this? Oh, 392.9. Yeah, 393. So I feel like this gap would fill. And then, once we fill the gap, we can kind of see, how the trend is because C waves are really bullish. If you see a very bullish reversal, then we could, ideally, move higher and go to like 417, 418 before we come down for the larger trend. So I see, there's a bunch of BBs on here. You kind of want to discuss this flow?
Yeah, so I thought those were interesting, just given the time of them. They were June. You can definitely see that they are below bid sweepers, so they came in below the bid price and they swept them. So they went across a bunch of different of the exchanges to get into these quickly. I was thinking about these because when these came in on Friday, I was thinking about all weekend. It could be interesting. Maybe that's a potential short-term, floor, or they're, or there's someone's just playing the bounce potentially. But 372, those are definitely, out of the money bullish put right there. So they're collecting the premium. So, it's an interesting play right there. But
Also,
I think it might be a floor.
no, I think OPT, remember, I think before Friday, like they were hitting 372s. Could they just be closing their previously open contracts because, they're kind of taken back by the bounce?
The first order could be. The second order, it's a little trickier because the second order puts it above open interest. And that's what sort of has been interesting and tricky with flow all week. It's been kind of very mixed on the above ask bid and below bid side, when they're hitting the same strikes in ESPs. So a lot of the things I've been doing last week. I'll have to probably looks like continue to do this week where I'm checking open interest on flow you see like this. It very well could be closing orders. Monday's open interest is going to tell us.
Yeah, I agree. And something we know is we can see that previously this area at 403, 404 has acted like a supply zone. So depending on how we open up tomorrow, I'd be watching this, either if we gap down, then I, kind of lean towards this chart where we're likely, gonna come down to the wave five. However, if we open a little bullish, I'd watch this area, right, a supply zone to see if we reject and, possibly play the downside to 392. And then, when the gap fills, I feel like we should kind of put our bias aside and see, which way we're kind of headed. So yeah, that's what I have for SPY. Similarly for QQQ as well, right? I have the same same bull and bear scenarios where if I zoom out, we know this was the bigger channel. We've been ping ponging up and down, and we hit the bottom of the channel. Actually, look at that, right? People say TA doesn't work, and we pretty much bounced off the bottom of this channel and had a pretty push, right? You can see here the last time it was a wave 4, right? We rejected this, the middle of this channel before we came down here. So I'm thinking something similar, right? In regards to QQQ, we reject similar, structure wherein I'd say, let me do this, right? We could pretty much, right, copy this and paste it here. Similar structure wherein, we'd come make a new low at about 280 before we move to the upside. So this is kind of something I'm watching, right? And I do see the QQQ floor is a lot more indicative of bearishness.
Yeah, there's definitely some short-term bearishness we're seeing right there in the flow. While I wish the premiums were a little higher, it's flow that I like. To me, it's showing it's giving a directional indicator of what flow is looking like. QQQ is going to do, along with factoring in your Elliot's wave and some of the other TA. I'm in agreement with you here that the Qs look like they have a little bit of weakness left in them.
Yeah, and alternatively, same as SPY, right? You can see that we're heading towards the supply zone. So around like 304, I'd still expect us. We do have. Did we fill the gap? Let's go to the daily chart. Right? No, we haven't filled the gap. So we do have a gap to fill even on QQQ to 292. So again, I can count 5 waves to the upside, right? So I'd watch a rejection at supply, right? We are early in the week going to have some kind of pullback before we actually, move higher for that wave 4. So yeah, this flow, I do see a lot more Bs on this QQQ flow, right? What's your take on that? Although they're lower value and there's a higher sweep for like 1.5 million.
Yeah, that's the tricky one. We've got to sit there and look at I'm going to pull it up on my screen just so I can see it a little better. That's the one where we've got to sit there and look at timing of these. What was the price action doing? So even though that one was on the ask side, what we're looking at there as well is price moved up from the last one quite a bit. Yeah, there was a 7-minute gap between the two, but the price did move up quite a bit at $1.20. So I'm actually going to be leaning that these are probably bullish, given the fact that we have a lot of that put writing there with the middle 4 and the purple right there. Again, this one is a little trickier to tell, though. Again, just the way flow has been kind of going the last week or two. A lot of mixed action in there. But these are something I would watch, especially at that price point. They're slightly out the money. So that's why I'm leaning that these possibly could be bullish, also given the short time frame on them. They might be, playing that for that pop and dumping these.
Yeah, I agree. And it looks like futures blew through this high. So yeah, I'm most likely watching first to, fill this gap early in the week and then kind of see if we're going to reverse with FOMC. Like, I think the trend's been we sell off the first few days, right? Into FOMC, we kind of have the pump. So let's kind of see if we follow through the usual pattern. IWM, on the other hand, has been visibly more bearish compared to the rest of the indexes. And we know it's had the sell-off, right? We've gone sideways for a few months. And now, we've broken a 4-month channel and then boom, right? Once the channel broke, it was definitely a trend to the downside. So again, IWM similarly, right? I'm watching to see if we have that, reject here, we'll have the wave 5 sell-off, right? And the flow does look definitely more and more directionally bearish compared to the rest of the indexes. Any thoughts?
Yeah, so the flow you've got up on the screen now, the June 3rd, 157.5 put. I like these. I wish the values were higher, but it's just directional. It's short term. They are far out the money, so that's the only concern there, is that these could be hedges. Also could just be spec or gambler flow. But something to watch, interesting. And the other flow that we have on the screen, the other 6.3s, the 170s, those are a little bit more mixed because you've got the bid and ask side mixed in there. The only thing that kind of gives me a little scariness with these, so to speak, is the contract size on the bids are pretty decent. While the values are a little bit on the lower side for an IWM, that would be leaning potentially a little bit more bullish there. And the only thing that makes me kind of hesitate to go 100% confidence with that bullish is if we look at the spot price. I'm sorry, not the spot price, the price they paid for the contract. It was 249 the whole way. IV stayed flat. So there is a good chance that these are actually just ask side and they just got filled on the bid, and that these are actually bearish.
Yeah. And alternatively, right, same as QQQ and SPY, we could just, come down to fill the gap, right, before we launch higher. So most of the charts, right, it's a very similar ABC pattern that you should be watching unless, you see the market open red. And once you fill the gap, like if there's no strong bounce, then we're likely headed lower. And something about the 157.5 strike is that it pretty much, matches the bottom of the wave 5. So, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, we've seen that quite a bit actually. Sometimes on that out the money flow that we do see it lines up with a fib level or an Elliot wave target or a dark pool level potentially. So there is some credence to kind of keep an eye on those. And that also, like I think you said this to me last week when we were talking about these. This could just also be the starting position. If we see more of this flow in on Monday, with heavier values behind them, it kind of gives the indication then.
Yeah, agree. All right. With that being said, we can actually go to this week's, Wavelist. And, last week we had a pretty decent one, right? UPSD was golden, Square was golden, Walmart and McDonald's were they barely moved. But yeah, we can go through this week's playlist, right? So the first stock I actually have is Square because somehow I just can't get over, once a chart really flows through, I actually, kind of like to, keep playing the same stock. But anyway, we can look at Square because it has been visibly bearish, right? And all of a sudden, Square has, it moved like from the bottom. What happened to my drawings? Hold on. All right, trading, you just erased all my drawings, but it's okay. I will do it again in front of you for Square, right? This is my 1, 2, this is my 3, right? This was a wave 4 bounce that I'm looking for it to end, and I'm looking for a wave 5 lower. So on Square, what I'm kind of looking at is, will it reject, right? Will it reject? You can look at this chart. Will it reject, right? You can see there's also a downtrend channel on this chart where if you keep going down like that, we did, kind of break through it. That's when you kind of saw the flush, right? We flushed all the way to 63 before we turned higher. And you can see we're sitting right at, an important level of volume, which could act as resistance. So that's kind of why I am watching for like a move to the downside, right? It may not go to 70, but I think at least 75 is possible on Square. So that's the reason I have Square puts on there. And OPT, I know you didn't really see any interesting flow on Square, but is it visibly more bearish, or would you just say it's kind of meh?
I would say the flow overall is kind of meh. The thing that gets me about Block or Square, whatever they're going by now, and all those others, pardon me, is the crypto proxy. And as you know, because we've talked about it all week, at least everyone has, I think. Crypto just does not look strong right now. Yeah, BTC, I think we've gained 30,000 as we're talking, but I don't have a lot of faith in it staying above there for too much longer. And I think that's going to just pull Square down more.
Agreed. All right, let's look at the next one we have for the watch. I actually have gold calls, which is kind of interesting because given how bearish gold's been, but the reason, it caught my interest is that we knew, from November all the way to like March, gold was kind of in this pennant going sideways, sideways, sideways. It broke up, had that massive move, right? And then boom, it just went sideways and then got destroyed. So the reason it's caught my interest is because you can see this edge of the trend line, lines up with where we're currently sitting. Obviously, we did have an inside day too. So I do think gold could be in, for a short-term reversal. I feel like a move to 174 is kind of, could be warranted on gold. But here's some of the flow on gold, right? What are your thoughts on that? Do you think we'll see a short-term bounce based on this flow?
Gold and silver, just to lump them in together while we're talking about, because I did look at silver flow after we talked about gold. They're both just kind of meh, I don't know what's going on if there's institutionals are just not putting their money there yet, or if there's just been a slower rotation into gold, or maybe people already have had their hedges and they're just sitting pretty with them right now. But yeah, the flow to me just looks kind of just, man, nothing I can say that I would want to play off of it.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, I mean, I feel like it's worth the counter trend bounce at worst, but yeah, it just kind of caught my interest because you can see every time we've hit the bottom of the trend line, we did have a visibly decent bounce. So yeah, maybe worth it if you're trying to put, a small position into it. But again, yeah, flow's kind of mad. Chart's also mad, but it could be due for a bounce. All right, the next one I got for the watch list is actually Carvana puts, right? I know the flow is kind of, I wouldn't say funny, but they have $15, which, who knows? Probably, kind of happens. So on the 30-minute chart for Carvana, I kind of, you can see I have 5 waves to the upside again in ABC. So I do think, again, we could come down to 32, either break this and make a new low, or this holds for a C wave to the upside. But the flow is obviously more visibly bearish. And $15, do you think we get there? But they do have 2023 though.
Yeah, so they did buy some time on these, about 6, 7 months, whatever you want to call it, approximately. Um, you know, and given the news that came out last week about Carvana, layoffs, all of that, the used car market's just been nuts. I don't think it's out of the question. So I mean, these definitely caught my interest, and it's definitely one where maybe I do wait for that C wave bounce into the wave 4, and then get into these. But yeah, Carvana is one that I'm unfortunately not so hot on anymore.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I know I'm kind of laughing, but it actually aligns with the fifth wave all the way down to 15. So, they could be bang on with that, with the amount of time they've bought as well. All right, the next one I actually have is Walmart calls, right? I think it has earnings next week, so it could be very interesting. We know it's kind of in this downtrend channel for Walmart where we've just kind of been going sideways, right? So I feel like, if we did, gap out of the channel, we could have a run to 152. Any thoughts on Walmart ER, how they're going to do?
Oh no, I don't remember off the top of my head, but there was some interesting, I think, on the Walmart algo. Let me see if I can grab it real quick. But yeah, here it is. What I thought was interesting in the Walmart algo, which I'll tweet it out here shortly, was the fact that both on the 15-minute curl down, where on the 1-minute intraday it was rejecting at a dark pool level. So to me, I don't have a lot of confidence in Walmart, and especially too because it does seem to align with Target's algo flow as well, where they're both sort of in that bearish trend line from an algo perspective. So both of them, I think, could be pretty negative there.
Yeah, and Target definitely has a more bearish chart, as you can see here, because this was, the A wave to the downside, then it had a counter trend bounce, it rejected, and then you saw the massive dump. So I do think Target is more visibly bearish than Walmart is, and you're right. They could, just as easily follow each other. So yeah, you could be right on that. I was just looking for kind of a small bounce, right? And there's a ton of call selling, but it looks like it was a weekly call selling. So I don't think that really helps us at this point.
No, those are definitely closed.
Yeah. All right. The next one I have is XLE, where the flow is pretty bearish, and they've just been, smashing puts. But, I'd say the chart, or it had a pretty bullish day. So I feel like as long as it stays below, right, it does have a gap to fill at 81.5, could probably fill it. But as long as it stays below 81.5, I feel like, it could have a pretty nice move to the downside. And bigger picture, right, if I go to the weekly chart on XLE, this is kind of the channel it's been following. And we're pretty much, at the top of the range. So we could at best, pump to 84 before it rejects, or we could kind of see the gap fill before we come back to the downside. So I know you're more an energy guy. So what are your thoughts on XLE and oil?
I'm actually in agreement with you. I mean, we've seen some flow for XLE come in the past couple of weeks on the bearish side, a million plus sweep, on a single order on that day. Maybe a couple of days later, another one comes in. This is the flow that really got me pretty excited, though. Yes, there's some blocks in there and everything of that nature, but they did buy time. They bought July. We just had a negative GDP print. Everyone keeps talking about how this, it's supposed to be the summer of travel. But if the consumer's not as strong and they don't have the cash to spend, or they start to rely on credit, and we've seen credit numbers go up. And then you also had the Biden administration coming out with, the floating the idea of doing a coalition or a cartel, so to speak, of oil buyers to kind of counteract OPEC. It just seems like oil is, oil is just going to be in a tricky situation, and I could see it having some bearishness for a while. And this is something that, should we reject at the level you said, I'll probably follow that Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah, and they definitely bought enough time to be right. So a little volatility will, affect their larger position. All right, the next one I actually have is KO, Coca-Cola, a boomer company, just like you like them. But yeah, I have
They
them.
move so slow.
Yeah, they move really, really slow. So yeah, if you're trying to play this, like buy time and like it's gonna take a while to move. But anyway, I feel like they could, hit the top of this trend line at around 68, right? If there is follow through. So I just, kind of put them on here. But again, they do move really, really slow, but they've been reliable, right? KO has just kind of just been doing its thing. But as you can see here, the reason I have 68 is it's this trend line that's holding as resistance. So, it could find its way to 68, 69 before it comes down lower. And the flow again seems mixed, not really a lot of value behind them either.
No, I mean, the flow for something like Coke's just really mixed right now. I think for something like a Coke, a Walmart that we spoke about earlier, even Target, we joke that they're boomer stocks and they move slow and whatnot. But, we're coming into OPEX weeks. There's already some bearishness in the market. And you said, you like Walmart for a bounce, you like Coke for a move up here. To me, that kind of aligns with potential short covering rally, where stocks like Walmart and Coke are kind of easy places to hide out in. Just because no one really goes, volatility on Coke never really spikes to anything insane. It doesn't move like Tesla and never will. I shouldn't say never will, just hasn't moved like Tesla. So I'm in agreement with you there.
Speaking of Tesla, it's actually the next play I have on the watch list, right? And there's a lot of B's on the put side and a lot of A's on the call side. Oh, there's a lot of B's on the call side too. So I'd say, flow's kind of mixed at the moment. And even bigger picture, right? We expected about 700s on Tesla. It overshot to 680s and now it's moved back up. The reason we expected this, we said that if it could not get back over this channel, it was likely going to flush. And so far, we pretty much bounced back to retest the top of the channel. So I feel like a rejection here, could take us lower to the low 600s. What are your thoughts? I feel like the flow is, I'd say, leaning more bullish than bearish, but
yeah, I mean, you could say the flow is leaning more bullish than bearish. However, with Tesla, even the bullish flow we have there, the bullish put writing is what it looks like to me for the 6.3, 735 strikes. I mean, combined, that's 1.3, 1.4, million, something like that, which for Tesla is just nothing. And even on the calls there that have a good mix of ask and bids, those very well could have just been day trades because, as we know, Tesla options just flow like crazy. So there could be a lot of day trades there. And it's one where even if there's ours, we're looking at values that just aren't super strong for Tesla. So Tesla is one that I would say follow more of the charts in your TA right now than what we're showing on flow, just because there's not a lot of great flow there for Tesla. When we look at Tesla, we like to see flow that's in the millions and lots of sweeps, and it's pretty obvious on Tesla when it's good flow. But yeah, I'm in agreement with you. The Tesla going down kind of makes sense too, especially with the SEC and what did Twitter's legal team say over the weekend, that he breached the NDA or something.
yeah, possibly, but alternatively, right, if it does manage to get back over 800, I'd say, has a pretty decent chance of running up $100. So yeah, kind of just watch this channel out. Tesla, what it does here will kind of tell you, what direction it's going in. And last but not the least, Boeing. So there seems to be a bunch of sweepers on Boeing on the ask side, right? And something to keep in mind about Boeing is it did have news intraday, right? So that could potentially, play a role in, Boeing actually, having a bullish day. Or again, if it breaks this low, right, at 122, it's likely headed to at least, 115 and lower. So if it does break 128, I feel like you could see the top of the channel at around, 135, 136. And what are your thoughts on the flow, OPT?
Yeah, I mean, the flow's clearly bullish. They bought some time on it. We did have that news come out last week on them. about how, what was it? Their application for the 738 wasn't complete. Not, I mean, it wasn't great news for them, but it's not necessarily the world's biggest deal because, you know, all they've got to do is complete the application, and the FAA and the Boeing team were probably in constant contact. I don't think this was anything shocking to them. So it's flow that I like, especially where if they get that announcement that the application's received and the 730 or 787 gets back, Boeing could have that pop. Plus, we're talking about the summer of travel with everyone finally getting back out there. So these are things that I like. The only thing to keep in mind is premium on them is not cheap. You know, the $1,000 or $1,800 a piece. So just have proper risk management in your portfolio. But BA is something I do like going into the summer months.
Yeah, and it also does have a clean channel going on, so it could, you know, go to the top of the channel at around 136. So that's definitely something I'd be watching on Monday. All right, OPT, thank you so much for coming on. Have a great day. You know, Warriors are gonna kick Heat's ass if you do meet in the finals. So
We'll see you in the finals there, and we can do a Butler versus Corey, or Curry. Sorry, not Corey. Curry playoff battle or something.
all right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.